Hello, my name is James Ross. I'm going to tell you how I make bread. Here's a loaf I just made. Here's the pan I use. It's 8.5 by 4.5, about 3 inches deep. Got it at Maxway. I use 1 cup of whole wheat flour, 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Bread flour would be the best. I hadn't been able to find bread flour. I use this KitchenAid mixer, the KitchenAid bowl, and the bread hook. I put the flour in the bowl, 3 cups total. I mix in, depends on your taste, I mix in some Italian seasoning, garlic powder, salt and pepper to taste. Gives a little bit of, kind of like a herb bread. And I found the equal parts of whole wheat and plain flour make a loaf that's really tough to eat, tough to keep going with. It's a hearty bread, but it's not a very pliable bread. So I mix that all, I whisk the flours together. Then before I whisk the flours, before I mess with the flours, I take this Pyrex and I put 1.5 cups of good tepid water in there, pretty warm. Probably about 120 degrees. And I put 1.5 cups of water and about 1/8 cup of sugar. And then I sprinkled this Fleischmann's active dry yeast on it. And I mix it good and set it aside. You have to give it time to foam. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. You want your yeast foaming. If your yeast doesn't foam, your bread might not rise. So then I put it in the bowl. I pour in the water. I turn on. Well, first I take the spoon and make it into a dough ball. Then I put it on the KitchenAid mixer with the dough hook and let it knead it a little while. You don't want to knead it too much. When the dough comes off the sides of the bowl and it's just spinning around in the middle, that's when you want to quit. If you keep on mixing it, it'll go sticky and spread out again. You put your dough ball on a floured surface and you knead it for about 5 or 6 minutes. I knead it by spreading my hands apart, putting in my hands kind of like taffy, pulling taffy, and knead it and put it back, pull it apart, put it back together, pull it apart and put it back together. Or you can knead it on a floured surface by spreading it and folding it and spreading it and folding it. And then I make it into a ball and put it in the Instapot. Now you need to make sure it's a pretty dry ball. You want it sticky though. You don't want it folded together. You want it sticky so you don't have any folds in your loaf. You don't want too much flour on it. And I put it in the Instapot on yogurt. You press yogurt for 1 hour. You spray the inside of your Instapot with non-stick spray. You leave that for an hour, it rises, you put it back on the floured surface, you knead it for about 5 or 6 more minutes. And you want it good and sticky. You don't want it a bunch of folds in it, dry folds with a lot of flour. You want a minimum amount of flour on the surface of the dough. Stick them together, one uniform ball. You can roll it out in about 7 inches wide 8 inches wide, and then roll it into a roll and put it in here. Or just form a loaf with your hands and put it in here. And I set the oven on bake and warm about the last 15 minutes of the rising in the Instapot. So you can move when you put your dough in here, you can move it directly into the oven. You can move it directly into the oven, and the oven's on warm. You close it, you give it another hour. It rises. Sometimes at about 45 minutes, I think it's risen enough. If it rises too much, it overflows the pan. When it's got about 3 times volume, what you put in there, I just take it and turn this. I just leave the pan in there with the dough in it, and I turn this to 350 and set it for about 20-25 minutes. I like to keep my dough, my bread, a little bit doughy because homemade bread dries out so quickly. And if it's a little bit doughy, when you toast it, it cooks a little bit. So it stays fresher longer, doesn't crumble. So that's my loaf of bread. I take it out, put it on the rack, let it cool, put it in the plastic bag when it's a little bit warm. I like to capture the moisture so it keeps the loaf moist. This one's about cooled enough. I put it in the bread bag, and I'll probably have to give this loaf to somebody because I've just made 3 loaves today. But I don't know, I hadn't sold any. But I don't know what a good homemade loaf of bread is worth around here. It's a tough go to make any money on it, I tell you that. It takes so much time, but it's well worth the effort if you like homemade bread. God bless.